Hey guys, it's Kelsey. I'm back with another scrapbooking process video. This is layout 3 with my Florabella collection. And I finally have accumulated some scraps from the first two layouts that I've done. So I'm trying to use a more toned down 12 by 12 so that I can kind of play with more layers on this one. The last two pages was really, the background was the star of the show, and I was trying to design around the background so you could enjoy it. This one, with the more toned down background, I really get to play with layers and making kind of the clusters, the stars. I have a couple strips of this floral from the last page that I had gutted in order to mat it on that wood grain. So I'm going to go ahead and use these offcuts to frame the top and bottom of this page. I'm just doing little strips on the top and the bottom. You can see that top strip doesn't go all the way to the edge, so I am going to cut that at some point and have a cluster up there that'll cover the gap, but I really want this floral strip to look like it runs edge to edge on the top and bottom of this layout. So I'm going to go ahead and ink everything that I know I'm using and get the strips down, and then I'll get to start playing with my layers. But yeah, I love that I got those used up because I was worried those would be scraps at the end of the month. But you can see I just tore that one there and glued it to the edge. That way there's a little gap there, but I'll just have embellishment at some point covering that gap on the top of the page. But I have two 4x6s here. I really wanted to use both of them, of me, my sister, and my mom. I really wanted both of them because you kind of get the farther back picture where you can see all of our dresses, and then the closer up one where you can see more of us and a better look at our bouquets. So I really wanted to use them both. I just stacked them together. I'm not even going to like mat. I thought about matting them on white, but I kind of thought with these papers I wanted the photo directly onto these layers, and you can see this scrap of floral is not big enough to mat both of these. So I'm planning on having a scrap of the white wood grain I've been using this month as a horizontal strip that will fill in the gaps of this floral bit. So hopefully this floral paper looks like it's matting the photos completely, but really there's this wood grain strip that's going to cover the gap. So I'm just trying to get it to space out correctly, and I'm saving what I can of the wood grain, and I will also gut another part of the floral so that I have that to use on another layout too. But I'm trying to make sure everything spaces out well before I start gluing and gutting some more. But I loved this floral from the last layout, so I'm really trying to make sure you can appreciate it as a layer as well as a background. So I think having it as the strips on the top and the bottom and the main mat, hopefully you can appreciate it. But I just gutted the background where the pictures are going to go. I'm going to back the whole layout with a filler paper for stability and to cover that big hole, and then I'll start gluing down my layers. This is kind of always the most monotonous part of the layouts. It's always fun. I love layering, but the gutting part, I know you just kind of got to sit and get through so I can start playing with the embellishment. But the layers came together really quickly because I was using scraps, so kind of just use them how they were. But I'm going to get that glued down, and then I have that other fabric tag I really wanted to use on layout 1, and I will use it on this layout because I have a more subtle background so that I can actually use it as a focal point and you can appreciate it without it being too distracting. So I think we got our layers glued down, and now I want the main cluster right here to the right of the pictures. I'm going to add a scrap of a doily, and there's that fabric tag that I love. I think it's so cool, adds so much texture, and I think it just goes so well with the rustic aesthetic. So I'm thinking about pulling in a floral. I really want to use one of these kind of bride cowboy hats. That's another kind of random thing I didn't know would go well on these pages, but somehow it just works. So I'm going to thread that tag with some golden white twine and kind of compose my little cluster here. I thought the hat on just the tag, there was too much brown going on, and I wanted more layers, so I think having that multicolor floral behind the hat kind of adds that that I needed. And then I will go in and add another one of those little heart-shaped locks, and I'll pop that up on some foam so it has a little bit of dimension, because you can kind of see how the hat and the floral kind of runs together. They kind of don't look like separate pieces. When I'm layering up my clusters, I really want you to be able to appreciate the individual pieces and that I put them together in that pretty way. So sometimes if you layer too many flat things, it just looks like one piece that you just stuck there and not multiple little pieces. So that's why I like popping different things up on foam. And even inking the edges help kind of break up the pieces, which I don't know if I remembered to ink those. That's probably why they look more like one piece. But I really like how that little cluster turned out. So that's my main cluster. I do want a couple other areas of interest around the page, but not near as intricate as that main one, because I really think that's the focal point of this page. But I do need something in the top right hand corner to cover the gap of that strip. So I had a scrap of blue, which was a middle portion of one of those frames that I had gutted. So I trimmed that into a banner and inked it, and I'm planning on that being a kind of a more simple cluster, but I wanted another one of those little heart-shaped locks up there. And and I'll just trim that overhang because I really didn't need that banner as long as it was, so you'll see that. But I'm also thinking I need another area of interest. I'm thinking the top left-hand side of the page, I could have something tucked in coming up from the top of the layers. That would be cute as long as it was more minimal. But before I get there, I realized that I wanted to use a glassine bag in this cluster as well, just to beef it out even more. So I'm just tucking that glassine bag under there and re-gluing stuff. But I do like that extra added texture to help beef up that main section. And then I'm inking that heart and putting foam on it so that has some dimension too. So I think after that cluster, I do go to the top of the photo, though I'm trying to remember what order I did stuff in. Something I do not have on this page yet that I'm thinking I'm going to try to pull in on all of the pages are one of these frames, because I have a whole 12 by 12 cut apart of these frames, and I love how they look in layers. So again, I'm just going to fussy cut and gut this little frame so you can really kind of see the dimension of it. And I'm only going to have a portion of it sticking out of the top of those photos as the base of that cluster, but I will use the other half of this frame somewhere else on this page. Because I love using frames like this where you kind of cut them and you can have them in two areas of the page instead of just one. Because I think it just helps make the page cohesive. But I love how this little frame looks tucking out of the top there, and I think I go in with one of the little floral cut apart pieces and pop that up on some foam, and one of these little feathers I'll end up adding too. But I wanted just a couple things so it kind of mimicked the look of the lock and the banner, but it wasn't as complicated as the hat cluster, just so you have a little bit of interest over there too. And then while I had that scrap of the frame, I was like, I really want to use this other portion. And since my main cluster, I really want to be like, oh, wow, that's cool. I decided it couldn't hurt to add another layer there. So I just decided to tuck it underneath the wood grain. There was a little bit of a gap that I wasn't planning for because I didn't cut that frame in order to fit this spot. But I decided just to take a couple feathers to fill in the gap so you can't tell that that frame is not complete. And I kind of like that too, because when I go back and add the feather to the top left-hand corner, it's kind of balanced across the page, having these two feathers at the bottom. But I really like what that adds to the one cluster. And now I'm going back in and figuring out what to add to this top cluster, and I end up going with this one floral bit, and that's getting popped up on some foam. And that's actually going to overlay part of the photo too instead of being tucked behind. But once I add that, I'm like, I need another little thing. I'll add a feather. And then I think once I get to that point, that's when I'm like, I should go through some of the stash from my my collection and see what else I can pull into this. And that's when I decided to pull in this little Maggie Holmes gold sticker sheet. If you guys saw the Maggie Holmes page I did last month, you'll remember me mentioning that this sticker sheet sits with my Maggie Holmes stash and then I forget about it to use on other collections. And since I'm pulling gold in this month, I made sure I pulled that out so that maybe I could get some more of this used up. And I think it went perfect on this page. So I'm just adding little pops of gold to 3 different areas just to create a visual triangle with the gold. So I have a little banner up by the blue banner. I have a little word sticker here with the floral that just says smile, and I trimmed that into a banner too. That way it would kind of play off of the other banner on this page. And then I just pulled one of the tickets in to tuck out of my main cluster. All of them have words on it, but I knew the words would be covered, so I kind of picked the ticket that I thought the word was going to be one I used the least. And so you just have a little bit of that gold ticket shape coming out of this cluster, which I think is a really cute little detail. But now there's gold in each area. I will go through and do some Heidi Swap gold color shine around the page. This is where I go in and add that final feather. But I love how this one comes together. I kind of thought about doing a title, and then I really realized, like, I really don't need a title or journaling on this page. I really just want you to look at the pictures and appreciate how beautiful my mom and my sister look. And I love the color scheme too, because I wasn't too picky. I knew I wanted my sister to be in the wine colored burgundy. But my mom kind of got her dress after my sister, and we didn't know if we could get the same color, so we ended up going with a different color entirely. I love how the blush looks with the rest of the wedding colors, so I love how we all look together. But here are the close-ups. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.